are the qawam, or the maintainers, the supporters and the maintainers of the woman. He is responsible financially. He's also the one that's supposed to be kind of leading or guiding the environment in the house. The women of Ahle Kitab, the Christians and the Jew woman, they have to be practicing. They have to know their religion. They can't just be Christian by name or Jew by name. Today, inshallah, we're going to be discussing the Islamic ruling pertaining to marrying a non-Muslim. So Islamically, a Muslim man is permitted to marry a non-Muslim woman as long as she is from the Ahle Kitab. And that basically means that she is either a Christian or a Jew. And we will later get into what are the stipulations pertaining to that. However, a Muslim woman, she is not allowed to marry a non-Muslim man, even if he is a Christian or a Jew. It is not permissible unless he converts to Islam. Now, normally when we have these discussions, it very quickly turns into, see, this is another form of gender discrimination in Islam, right? It turns into this evidence that, oh, there's gender discrimination in Islam. But it's very important to understand the hikmah and the wisdom behind Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands and orders instead of jumping to these conclusions of discrimination and being unfair, etc. And if you look at the responsibilities of a male and a female in any marriage, the responsibilities on a female are common among all the Abrahamic faiths, right? So for example, the Christians, the Jews, the Muslim woman, basically the rights in a marriage, or the responsibilities, I should say, in a marriage are all the same. But the responsibilities of a Muslim man in the marriage are set in stone. They're basically, cut out by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And very clearly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, right? That men are the qawam, or the maintainers, the supporters and the maintainers of the woman. And what that means is that a man in the household, the husband, he is responsible financially. He's also the one that's supposed to be kind of leading or guiding the environment in the house. And this responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on a Muslim man, it makes the life of a Muslim woman very easy, because financially he's responsible for everything. He's also the one that sets the tone in the household. He's also responsible for the upbringing and the tarbiyah of his children. And he's actually a maintainer or a supporter for her so that she can easily maintain and raise the children as well. Now, if a non-Muslim man marries a Muslim woman, right? Yes, some may argue that, of course, non-Muslim men, there are plenty of non-Muslim men that have the same values, which is true. However, there is no religious accountability for them. For a Muslim man, if he does not fulfill his obligations, he very well knows that on the day of judgment, he will be held accountable for his actions, whether it was neglect, whether it was, not being around, whether it was abuse, whether it was control, whatever it is, he's going to be held accountable for it on the day of judgment. However, a non-Muslim man would not have that feeling of accountability. And when there is no feeling of accountability, you're not obliged, you don't feel obliged to fulfill all of those rights. The second issue, right? So the first issue was basically that the expectations from a Muslim man are very different, and a Muslim woman deserves those from her husband. The second one would be the influence and the upbringing of children. Now, I want to mention a very important point over here, that even between Muslims, when a Muslim woman and a Muslim man are getting married, one of the factors of equality that are important is their religion, right? So for example, if she prays 5 times a day and she's also a hijabi and she's reading the Quran and she's very close to her deen and he is not, or if he is very close to his deen, for example, he is a person who prays regularly, he's a person that reads the Quran, he is very fearing of halal and haram, and she is not, right? Scholars say that we should not push for that marriage, because later on it will affect their own relationship as well as the upbringing of their children, because both of the parents will not be on the same page. Now imagine if a Muslim woman marries a non-Muslim man. The influence that a father has on the household and the upbringing of the children, right? That it influence is very impactful. So how will she be able to raise Muslim children if her husband is not a Muslim? So all of his beliefs, right, they will trickle down into the children. And for her to convince him that his children are Muslim is going to become a lifelong debate. And later on may even break the marriage. Because sometimes in the heat of the moment, people make these decisions. And we don't think the long-term effect these decisions will have on our lives. So that is the second one. Now, I do want to end the video by talking about Muslim men marrying non-Muslim women, right? Yes, it is permissible. It's completely permissible. We see it happening a lot too. But there is a point to note over here as well, that those Ahle Kitab, the women of Ahle Kitab, the Christians and the Jew women, they have to be practicing. They have to know their religion. They can't just be Christian by name or Jew by name and he marries them. Because if they don't know their own religion and they don't accept Islam, there is going to be no spirituality or religion in that household. And that is very essential for a Muslim marriage and for family and children. So that is why Muslim men are also advised to make sure that the woman they marry, the non-Muslim woman they marry, they are actually people of the book and they are following and they know their religion. And the other key point to this is they also cannot be mushrik. So if somebody says that Jesus is God's son, right, and she is Christian, because of her belief, now she's committing shirk. She's associating a partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And clearly in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that a Muslim man or a Muslim woman, nobody can marry anyone that commits shirk, that associates partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have to be very careful for our sons, for our brothers as well, that if they are marrying non-Muslim women, they also need to make sure that they're not committing shirk, not associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, the second part for Muslim men is also that if they are going to marry a non-Muslim woman, they have to set the tone of how the children will be raised. The children are to be raised Muslim, right? This is not something that's up for debate. This is actually a consensus of the scholars that when a Muslim man marries a non-Muslim woman, the children are to be raised Muslim. So he also has to know his faith, and he also has to set those boundaries that yes, he should be respecting her religion, because as Muslims we're taught to respect the other person's religion. So he should be respecting her religion, but he also needs to set the tone and set the boundaries of what his children will or will not do. So this is a very important thing to keep in mind, even for the Muslim men who are choosing to marry a non-Muslim woman. I hope the video, inshallah, cleared some of the miscommunications or misunderstandings we have about this topic. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. Do share, like, and subscribe my channel, and I'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.